thanks for tuning in today. Today I have my Porsche 912E in the shop here. We're going to do an oil change, a valve adjustment, and then we'll also take it on the first drive since we have a nice day today. I'll timestamp this video in the description, so if you want to jump ahead, I'll explain more about the oil I use and why when we get to the oil change part. Like I said, this is a 1976 Porsche 912E, and there was about 2,200 of these made. This is number 915, and it's basically Porsche's replacement to the 914. They're looking for a price point under the 911 to try to generate more sales, and this is basically a 911 except for the transmission and the engine. The transmission's geared a little different. It's a 923 is what they call this transmission. The 915 is what's in the 911. It's a little taller gear ratios, and it has the VW Type 4 engine in it, modified a bit by Porsche. This has a Bosch fuel injection system on it. Basically the engine that came out of the 914. So they put the 914 engine into a 911 to try to get a little lower price point. But what happened was this car ended up being roughly the same price as the 911, so they didn't sell many of them, and it didn't go over very well. So it only lasted 1 year, 2,000 cars or so. So it's really rare for that. There's a lot of rare parts on it that only came on this car. So sometimes it can be fun to find original parts. And this one is pretty original. I found this in an estate sale, and it was basically in a garage for 20 plus years and just had stuff piled on top of it. And it sat like that for a long time. It got a lot of dings and dents on it. So the paint was in pretty rough shape. It had some peeling sections that were delaminating from the primer. So originally I wanted to try to save the original paint and just patch up where it was delaminating, but it basically just started chasing that delamination all over the car. So the whole thing was pretty much needed a repaint. So it was re-sprayed once, the outside, the door jambs, the inside of the trunk, and the engine compartment are all original paint. But didn't have much of a choice. Would have liked to saved it. And it had a lot of dings on it. It almost looked like hail damage from all the just stuff being piled on it over the years. Do a little walk around and then I'll show you the engine. So like I said, this is a flat 4 VW Type 4 engine. So it looks pretty small inside of there compared to a 911 engine, which is packed in there. This is all original fuel injection. Some little upgrades. The distributor's upgraded the coil. And I completely rebuilt this. The entire car was completely rebuilt a few years back, along when I painted it. And it just sat so long that a lot of parts just, was old because of time. The suspension needed all new shocks. Those are all bad. Tried to get away with some of that original stuff, but it just wasn't working. So we'll get it up on the lift and start out with the oil change and then on to the valve adjustment and the drive. So here we have the sump, and the strainer is under here and the drain plug is here. So we'll drain it and then we'll clean the strainer out and put new gaskets in there. While that's still draining, we'll get the main filter here. Okay, next we'll put a new oil filter on here just to stop it from leaking before we go after that strainer. Clean that off. Okay, so we'll remove this is the strainer plate, and this bolt here is very critical that it's only torqued when you install it to 9.4 pounds. They put a real specific torque on this because it attaches to a relatively thin aluminum bracket inside the engine. And if you over torque this, you could crack basically the engine case, and you have to dismantle the entire engine and split the case, and you might not even be able to weld it. But I put some safety brackets on here I could show you. I don't know if you'll be able to see them with the plate off, but there are a couple little brackets on each side of the sump. So that'll take some of the force if this ever gets over torqued, and it won't blow out that aluminum attachment. So it's hard to explain without showing it. But this is very critical, the most critical torque on the whole car. See, it's not on there very tight. And I'll put sealant around the gaskets. Let that drain a little bit. This is the strainer. We'll clean those all up. Okay, so here we have the sump screen and a couple little chunks on there. Very small. Looks like just remnants of some gasket maker, probably around the oil pump. So I'll take off these gaskets here. There's two of these. One on each side. You have a new kit for that and a new crush washer. That all looks pretty clean. No metal chunks, which is good. I'll take this down, run that through the parts washer. These can be reused. New crush washer, we'll anneal it quick. So here's a little support brackets I welded in. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. There's the weld here. There's a little bracket right here. A little foot. So when this pulls down, This bracket will take some of the pressure off, because this bolt is wrapped around a skinny little aluminum part up in the case. So that's why they have such a low torque on that. So this little foot here will stop this from pulling down. It just gives a little bit of an insurance policy in case it ever gets over torqued. So on these gaskets, I put a little Curel T2 on there. And not much left in this box, in this tube. The strainer's been cleaned in the parts washer and also brake clean. So this here is non-hardening, so you don't have to worry about it getting in the oil like silicone and blocking an oil passage. It's actually somewhat soluble in oil. I use this for a lot of parts on here. So that's good to go on. Put a little Curel on the crush washer too. So go ahead and set this to 9.4 foot-pounds. Right there. So there it is. This drain plug will go to 16 foot-pounds. There's that. Now we'll move on to adjusting the valves. So the first thing I'll do is take off the distributor cap. Now we're going to move it so the rotor is pointing the notch on the distributor, which is cylinder number 1. And then I have some marks on the pulley. I just put some paint on there, on top dead center and bottom dead center. So we'll get the pulley, or the rotor, over to number 1. So I'm just turning the alternator until I can get the rotor to number 1. So that's close. This is the notch right here. So that's close. This is the notch right here. This distributor looks a little different. It's a 1, 2, 3 ignition. So once I have it close with the rotor, then I'll go over here and get the notches on the pulley lined up. And there is a notch under here that also can be lined up. So I pull this bail off. Pull the valve cover off. And now this is number 1. And it should have a little bit of play, if you can hear it. So that just verifies that both of those valves have the tension completely off of them and we're correctly on number 1. Okay, so here we have the intake and the exhaust valves, and I have a no and go gauge, which I've just turned into an exhaust and intake. It's 6 thousandths on the intake and 8 thousandths on the exhaust. And that looks pretty good. There, intake, takes a little loose. We'll tighten that up a little. There's always a lot of back and forth. A little too tight now. There we go. So these are all set. Now we're just on to the rest of them. And we just follow along in order. So I just spun it backwards because the firing order is 1, 4, 3, 2. So if you go backwards, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we're on number 2. That's right on. That's pretty good. And that's right on. So those are really good. So we won't touch those. So clean up the surface, put the valve cover back on. And for the compound, I just put a coat of grease on there. I just replaced these last time. They can usually go a couple times without replacing the valve cover gasket. And the Volkswagen logo on here, I know it's hard to see, but you want that always upside down. That's the correct way to put these on. Can't believe how light these original Fuchs are. And aluminum lug nuts. These will torque down once it's on the ground. So here's the oil we're going to use. It's a Valvoline VR1 racing and classic cars, 20W50. This is designed for push rods and flat tappet engines, which basically means it just has a lot of anti-wear properties in it. It's high in zinc and moly, and I've actually had oil analysis done on this after about 5,000 miles on my 912. I did an oil analysis and it came back really good for low on wear metals, and the oil itself held up really well. The additive package held up well. So I've had great luck with this. I've only done it on the Porsche 912. This summer I think I'm going to run it in a 36 horsepower Beetle engine and see how that performs. Oil's pretty application specific, so you know, it could perform good in one car and not so good in another. But the yeah, it depends on too the health of the engine. So that the 912 was rebuilt a year ago, so it was pretty much a fresh rebuild. The oil analysis is good also for checking to see if you're getting blow by, if there's gas in the oil. You'll get a 3-page result basically back from the place. I usually go to Lake Speed has a place called Speed Diagnostics that you can search on the internet, and you can buy kits on their website. All you do is put your used oil in there, send it away, and you'll get an analysis back on how it performs. So it'll really let you know how an oil's doing. So I've had real good luck with this oil, and that's what we're going to use today in the 912. That's right on.